Hey gang, I started out my Wednesday hoping to see more state of the play reactions from various people, only to wake up to truly unexpected news out of Ubisoft regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows. Today, I'm going to read over the statement regarding the delay for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and let's talk a little bit about this financial target update that got released as well to investors to reflect the delay and why this isn't going to help Ubisoft at all. All right, so let's get straight into it. With the statement that they posted, it says, "Dear players, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a dream project for us." If this is a dream project for them, they need better dreams. Finally bringing the series to feudal Japan, with many features developed with our community in mind, such as parkour or the renewed stealth brought on by new technology, all set in a beautiful and immersive world. So I've seen the same videos that you guys have seen, and I think we can all agree from seeing those videos that they need to use old technology because this new stuff is just not doing it for them. This is an ambitious addition to the franchise, a rich experience that can be lived through the eyes of two unique protagonists. Unique, but not particularly good. Well, at least in the case of one of them. But we realize we need more time to polish and refine the experience, pushing further some of our key features. As such, we've made the decision to postpone the release date to February 14th, 2025. The game will release on a broad range of platforms, including Steam, at launch. Additionally, pre-orders will be refunded, and all future pre-orders will be granted the first expansion for free. So I went over this in an old video where, for PC at least, they were pushing everyone to go in through, is it Uplay? Or Ubisoft Connect, that's what it's called now. Same garbage, different name. They were pushing everyone to buy the game through there, so they didn't have to pay a 30% cut to Steam. They wanted to just pay the credit processing fees to get them to buy their garbage game, where in an environment where not only did they captured that extra 30%, but they also kept people from leaving reviews to potentially say that the game was ass. Outlaws is using the same, or it did use the same strategy that Assassin's Creed Shadows is trying to use, and this is the result of Outlaws. But let's move on a little further. We understand this decision will come as disappointing news, especially to those who've been waiting patiently for an Assassin's Creed game inspired by feudal Japan. But we sincerely believe this is in the best interest of the game and ultimately your experience as a player. Rest assured, we are looking forward to the moment you will embark on a memorable adventure with Naoe and Yasuke. Until then, we thank you for your ongoing support. Frankly, I am very disappointed. I was hoping to finish dunking on this game in November so that I would have December to just play games once we finished our winter releases for our games. But no, we're going to keep being drip fed awful cutscenes that we're all going to want to see and dunk on because they're going to be bad. And we're not going to get that break. We're going to have to wait another, 5 months for us all to come together and see how awful this game ends up being. Because a few extra months, if it was out in November, they're getting 3 extra months to polish the game. They have been putting their best foot forward with every video that they have come out with for this game. And every video looks bad. The combat looks bad. The animations look bad. I haven't seen much in the way of the story, but I assume if everything else is bad, it's going to be also bad. Now, for games, while a lot of people treat them like they're some special thing, let me bring something up for you guys. Have you ever worked someplace where the only reason that place stayed in business is because you had the right people in the right place so that everything could, be greased along and work can be done? A lot of game companies are like that. And when you don't have those people in those places to drive that quality forward, you still get a product. The product is just mediocre. It doesn't matter how much time you spend on it. It's always going to be mediocre because everyone has these low expectations for their own work. For bigger places especially, what they'll do is they'll say, I did the bare minimum. Everyone else is doing the bare minimum. This is good enough. And because a lot of these places are run by committee, there's no one to really blame because everyone's just altogether bad. This game gives me every indication that this is that kind of team where they don't have the right people in the right places. They don't have people to take responsibility for bad choices. They don't even have the same messaging. We've had members come out to insist that this is a historically accurate game, while we've had other members of the team come out and insist that no, this isn't historically accurate. We're just trying to, make a creative work. They can't stay on message. Everything that they release for this game ends up being offensive. Just in the past week, they had this broken Torii gate where it really upset a lot of people in Japan. I didn't know too much about it, but apparently seeing that had people there say, oh, this is very reminiscent of, it was either Hiroshima or Nagasaki, where there was a broken Torii gate. It's like a religious insult for the country, where they would have not made that insult if they hired experts. But the experts they hire are you've got that one expert that wrote a book on inappropriate relations between adult monks and adolescent boys. You have the original sin of this whole thing is a book written by a white guy that was working in Japan, who just forged an entire work that insisted that Yasuke was some legendary samurai. And the team saw it, decided not to fact check any of it, said, this fits the message. Let's pick it. Let's make this one of our protagonists. The first protagonist in all of Assassin's Creed that is based on a real person. And it is based on a real person because it fit the message, not because it was appropriate. Because if they had hired a real expert and said, hey, we're thinking of having a game in the Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States period, and we're thinking about having a black man going around murdering a bunch of Japanese people. What do you think about that? Those experts would say, that sounds terrible. You should not do that. That's going to be deeply offensive. But they don't hire experts. They don't hire quality people. Everything in this game has been a disappointment. Now, shifting gears from Shadows to a few things that we saw from a investor's note that went out also earlier today. I guess by the time this is posted, it will be yesterday. So September 25th. Listening to players' feedback and as an illustration of our player-centric approach. Yeah, I doubt that, buddy. The following important decisions relative to Assassin's Creed Shadows have been taken. Assassin's Creed Shadows will be delayed, blah, 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 blah. Additional time to polish the title. Basically the same thing that we saw in the last letter. Going to come out on Steam. They're going to get rid of the Seasons Pass model. Whatever. But the big thing that I saw and was kind of blown away over was in the next little section here where it says, additionally, despite solid ratings, Metacritic 76, and user scores across the first-party and Epic stores 3.9 that reflect an immersive and authentic Star Wars universe, Star Wars Outlaws initial sales proved softer than expected. So Metacritic, you've got two major scores. You've got your Metascore, which is off of critic reviews, which are utterly worthless. And then you have your user score, which is the actual people that buy and play the games. So they're sitting here saying, oh, look, 76, which is a C, basically, in terms of quality. And this, keep in mind, this is a 76 after they flew a lot of creators out to take them to Disney World to really puff them up and butter them up so that they're like, oh no, give us a better review. The best they could get was still a 76. The user score is a 5.4. That is a flat F in any kind of grading scale that you go for. This was a huge title. They spent a lot of money in licensing. They spent a lot of time on it. They spent a lot of time to build an outlaw style game where you can only be a good person. Star Wars, where every game has a light side and a dark side meter for you to be good or bad, and they force you to be good because, if they force you to be bad as well, that'd be extra content and extra work for them. We can't have a completed, polished game under Ubisoft. How dare you? This went out to investors where they're trying to say, oh, look, it was really good. And even those investors, and while a lot of those investors are probably pretty stupid, they're still going to be able to look at this and say, this is categorically incorrect. Users did not like this game. This game was not well done because they rushed it out. But even if they had spent another year, would it have really been any better? I don't know if anyone could guarantee that. Because even if it had gotten a little bit better, you'd have spent an extra year on development costs, which means to getting a return on investment, you need to sell even more copies. So if they had followed through with the same strategy of only selling it on console and on Ubisoft Connect, I keep wanting to say Uplay, I don't think they'd get that money back anyway. This is failure after failure out of Ubisoft, because all around, they just do not have the people. I do want to say another thing that really made me roll my eyes with this whole section. Finally, let me address some of the polarized comments around Ubisoft lately. I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company, creating games for the broadest possible audience, and our goal is not to push any specific agenda. We remain committed to creating games for fans and players that everyone can enjoy. That might have been something that we could have all been like, sure. But Yasuke is a main character in a game in an era where we should be only focusing on Japanese characters. That is the setting. Instead, it was more important to push the message and show how much you guys wanted that ESG money. So you put in a character that should not have been there, and you drove a lot of unnecessary hatred towards the game, and then proceeded to insult everybody, including hiring people to go to the Wall Street Journal and write articles about how people are just bigots for not liking the game. You are not an entertainment-first company. You're a joke. An entertainment-first company, what they do, what we do, is we will go in and say, okay, we want to produce a product. What kind of users would like that product? Can this be commercially viable? Do we have a solid footing for what we want to do? It's very dull in that stage. And then we say, okay, we've got the basics going. How do we want to theme that? And various companies have different ways of doing it. Some of them put forth an idea first, and they're like, okay, is this idea worth doing more action on? Everyone has their own creative process for their own businesses, but for bigger businesses, a lot of it is looking at the numbers first. You can say, we want to create a game in this specific genre. We want to potentially use these different monetization methods. Big things right now are, do you want to do free to play, where you're also having like a seasons pass, battle passes, microtransactions, or do you want to have a single player experience? What a lot of companies are doing is they're making single player experiences and then they're filling it with microtransactions. Good example that's a very popular setup is a lot of gacha games. They're foundationally single player experiences. Some of them will have like a multiplayer-ish thing where you fight other players. It's meant for whales to go against each other. But at the end of the day, they're just single player games. You're spending money to get characters for your single player experience. The multiplayer section is just an add-on. It is almost always something that you can enter a battle with another player. They don't need to be online. You just like run the numbers against each other and one side wins. If Ubisoft were to say, let's get into the gacha game category, it'd still be a flop, because they would go through their standard social justice-y, let's fill in all the boxes, let's bring in our like proto Sweet Baby Inc. folks, and they would create the worst cast of characters that you could imagine, and it would fail. This company is so adverse to success because they're not an entertainment first company. Start of the year we had, let's just take Assassin's Creed Black Flag with the ship-to-ship combat and put that in its own game. Those people that made that combat in Black Flag are clearly no longer under the Ubisoft umbrella, because that game was a disaster. Outlaws got it out there and it was just mediocre all around. Everything about it. I take that back. This was an amazing title for watching people play videos of it because the game was so broken. That is the only great thing that it is provided. They're going to spend a bunch of money trying to make it better over time. And a lot of people will still buy it when it goes on sale. But in terms of being a success story, it is not a success story. Assassin's Creed Shadows was going to be a commercial failure in November, most likely, given by all the metrics that we've seen. It's going to come out in February 2025 now. It's also going to be a commercial failure. It could come out in February 2026. That would be a commercial failure because the people that are needed to make these games a success do not exist at Ubisoft. I like to be positive on a lot of things, to say, oh, well, here's some ways you could maybe do it. But there's, when a game studio is broken, there's no fixing it. You can't just say, well, let me just bring in a person here or there and stick them in. For a lot of people that would be needed to run those companies, they would need to change a lot of the thinking of those companies. So even if you were to kick out a lot of the heads and stick new people in, they're effectively going to have to change how all the people there are thinking and going about their work. It is a lot of office politicking. And if a lot of these individuals loved their managers that were garbage that get fired, they're not going to perform as well. So for any of these studios where you see where it's just a terrible game comes out, a lot of cases that studio is just broken. The only way to fix it would be to spend tens of millions of dollars. And even then, you do not have a guarantee that that company is going to create a good product. All the stuff out of here with these Ubisoft games, I think if they had, instead of doing like Star Wars Outlaws and gone back to their roots of things like World in Conflict, that would have been lovely. But RTS games don't sell well. That's a niche market. I am not sure if any of these companies that are like the big hitters for Ubisoft, if they are all infected with this mindset of checking boxes instead of making good games, their whole catalog of companies that they are publishing for and paying, it's probably a loss. It would probably be easier to find some people that were good at their jobs, cherry pick individuals at these various companies that they knew could do a good job, and start anew. Make a new studio, smaller, for smaller scope games, and just lay off hundreds of people. Because when you keep them on the payroll, you have to pay for those people, and you expect that money back through the consumers. I'm not a fan of paying $70 for games on launch. I don't think anybody is. And we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to be paying a ton of money for these games because the companies forgot how to make games. And foundationally, Ubisoft doesn't know how to make games. But I had meant this to be a short video. I think I failed because I do want to talk about the state of play stuff a little later. But I'm going to call it here for tonight. And if you're interested in other games related news, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you again in a future video. Farewell.